So there doesn't seem to be any area of HR that isn't impacted by AI, whether it's personalised learning experiences or employee benefits, better and more accessible employee survey tools, enhanced data and analytics, or just simply the automation of transactions. Most HR teams are having to get to grips with the potential of AI. And today I'm joined by Andy Headworth, who is the Deputy Director Talent Acquisition at HMRC. And Andy is trailblazing the use of AI across the recruitment function, not just within HMRC, but also into some other parts of the wider civil service. So welcome, Andy.
Hi, Lucy. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you with us. Now, you're not from a traditional HR background, are you?
No, my background is purely recruitment. So you describe me in the civil service as a specialist, as opposed to someone with a generic HR background. So it's been recruitment right the way through, primarily the private sector, and then an old customer of mine who became an HR director in HMRC. It was that call I had on a Friday afternoon. I've got a problem.
One of those calls.
Yeah, and I went in for 3 months to come and help with them with some recruitment strategy, and 8.5 years later, I'm still there.
Well, you're obviously enjoying it. And I think from talking to you a bit earlier, my sense of one of the reasons why you're probably enjoying it is because actually you've had the scope to do some amazing things. So let's get into it. Let's talk to us about the ways in which you've introduced AI into the hiring processes within HMRC.
Yeah, it really did start 2 years ago when ChatGPT landed. I've been an early adopter in recruitment all my career. So right back to when the internet came along, we were Googling for CVs in 2001 to social landed in 2004, 2005, and then, led that through and was very much part of the social recruiting space. And so when a new technology comes along, it's like straight away, you're looking for how you can use it. It's unlimited. So straight away we got it, and we were playing with it, and you go straight to sourcing and you play around with how you can find things and build strings, etc. But primarily it started with my team about the Easter following ChatGPT, and we got a group of us together and we just started playing with it. So we'd have an hour every week of all the millions of tools were coming out. Literally, if you remember at that time, probably 50, 60 a day, and we were cherry picking them and playing with them. And then our little group grew to more, and we then started to think, right, actually, now we better get serious about this. We better think about, we've got a tool here that is going to be exponential. It's going to sit across the whole HR and business space. So we very simply decided to chunk up our recruitment process to try and isolate areas we could use AI in at that time, because it was still still very new, to be fair. And we sort of chunked our processes up into 5 or 6 generic process areas. We'd already been playing with sourcing. That was relatively easy to build strings, Boolean strings, and help identify talent pools. That was relatively straightforward, and that was very much independently led as a consultant or as a recruiter. But we identified sort of 2 pain points, and the 2 pain points that we wanted to solve to start with, which causes a lot of pain in every organisation, but certainly in HMRC, was the hiring manager. How do we help a hiring manager do their job better, faster, quicker, save them time to do the things that they should be doing or they could do? And the second one was the world of talent insights. How do we use the tools and how do we build something to get effectively instant insights to be able to make a good decision and a hiring decision, or where do we go to hire people and do we move people around? So we picked on those 2 to start with as 2 problems.
Can I just interject there and just ask a couple of follow-up questions? Because you've said a couple of things there that I think is worth exploring in a bit more detail before we go on to look at what you actually did. The first one was that you talked about playing, experimenting with stuff. And it sounds such a frivolous word, but it strikes me that there's 2 approaches to this. You're talking about 50, 60 products coming out every day. I've seen some HR people just put their heads in the sand and just kind of, I'll wait until the early adopters have got to grips with it and they tell me which are the best ones. But your approach is let's have a play with them. Is that something that you would say is absolutely essential when it comes to a new area like this, that you've just got to experiment, try stuff out, play with it, knowing that most of it perhaps won't work? Would you advocate that as a strategy if you're thinking about introducing AI, is just have a go?
100%, and that's exactly what we did. We were literally coming to we put an hour aside every week, which was effectively everyone came together, and there was no real agenda. We were trying to, as you say, find the tools that worked, find the needle in the haystack with all of it,
Yeah.
and was basically full empowerment. It was come to play. The tools are there. No one has got any rules. There is no right and wrong with AI, and there still isn't, actually. There's a lot of guidance, but it's still so new that people are doing some really cool things. And so it was, it basically empowered my team completely. Come along, we're going to play. And they still have that empowerment now to discover and go and explore the AI tools and how we can use them. So that's never changed. Going back to your point on fun, that was the essential part. That's what got people hooked, because we weren't worrying about work at that stage. All the tools that coming out were making presentations. They were graphic related. They were tool related. They weren't necessarily some of the hardcore things that are being built now. So we just had fun with it. We literally were just having some. And then what happened was we ended up with a nice little group of people coming together, and it was like, okay, we need to move this forward. We need to now stop looking at tools because we had too many to look at, to be honest. They were coming everywhere. So I said, right, okay, so let's put it up a notch. Let's see what you've learned in the last month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and see what prompts you've done and see how you're doing it. So let's have some fun. And it was a spontaneous in one of our Thursday lunchtime sessions, and it was totally spontaneous. I said, right, picture competition, completely random.
Yeah.
Next week, there was 2 pictures. 1, recruiters in the wild, and 2, a cat's birthday. Absolutely no idea why I picked those 2. But we did.
In the wild and a cat's birthday. Yeah. Okay. I'm hanging on just. Yeah. Keep going, Andy.
So, but it was just, and even then, straight away, I just literally said it, and some of the guys and girls in the team were like, and pictures were popping up in the Teams chat, and it prompted a lot of interest. And what happened was they went back to their desks, and of course they were saying, "Oh, I've just been doing this. I've just been creating this picture," and then someone else. So the next week, we doubled our people that have come along because they're going, "Oh, what's this? This is curious." So then
So this wasn't a Thursday lunchtime group just for your team. This was kind of anyone could come along and have a go.
To start with, it was my team, but then there was no limit. So as people found out about it, people were joining from other teams, but they were all in the HR function. We didn't limit it to our team, but at this stage we were still exploring ourselves, so we weren't ready to sort of actively promote it.
I think that's a really important learning, isn't it? That actually, to begin with, creating an environment where people can come along, get involved, have a play, experiment, doesn't have to work straight out of the box. It's just about getting to grips with it and its capacity and its capabilities. But then the second point that you raised, where as part of your process for introducing it, was the pain points it was trying to solve.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear that, because I think quite often our starting point is what does the tech do rather than what's the problem we're trying to solve. And so the pain points for you with the managers that you were working with, did you go directly to them, or was this something that you were just aware of because you've been a recruiter for a while?
Very much the latter. Everyone in recruitment knows where the challenges are. Is if we can make a hiring manager's life easy in any way, shape, or form, we're going to get a better working relationship with them.
What specifically were you trying to make easier?
So the problem they have with recruitment is they think it's the volume, it's the scale, it's the, oh, I've got to recruit again, or where's my job description? What have I got to do? How am I going to do it? Oh, interviews, right, where are my interview questions? What do I ask? Oh, does that join up with a job description? Oh, and if I want to advertise it on LinkedIn because my recruitment colleague is telling me to do so, what do I do?
Yeah.
And we've got these things called success profiles. How do I use those? And so the functions that a hiring manager has to do currently, within an environment, and what we were trying to do is go, there is a way we can take all of that pain away from you. We can give you a golden thread that goes from start to finish, and then it's over to you. But we can give you all the tools you need to do that job in a very easy way, and which is the tool that we built. And all they have to do, in simple terms, is give us a job title, tell us where they want to recruit, and if there's any special requirements for that role. And it literally goes into a screen on the AI tool that we've built. And within the next 2 or 3 minutes, what it does, it then starts to, with the golden thread right through, it starts with that job advert, stroke job description. We've plugged it, we put the large language model, and what we've put in there is all the publicly facing data. So this is no private data, and that's really important. We've put in our EVP, our career site, old job descriptions. We put in all the Civil Service Commissioners' rules, all the governance from the Civil Service. So it is very comprehensive what's in there. And then if we've got a couple of our directorates in HMRC, and we've got quite a few that have got agreed, like DDAT, so the digital data teams have got agreed specifications on their job. So we plug those in. So it knows that if the job is in that sector, then it has to pull from that. And then what we really like, and what's been brilliant, is that AI is pulling this information from the World Wide Web and everywhere else, but it's pulling in the modern words, the modern job titles, the modern tools. So it knows, if you put data analyst in, it knows the latest tools that people need to be using. And that's one of the big changes we found, that we've raised the quality of the applicants because they've got much better job descriptions and job adverts because they're asking for the current tools. Instead of...
How interesting, because that really matters to tech people, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Yeah. And you'll know from, within HR that how many hiring managers over the years have kept that job description in the bottom left-hand drawer. They get it out once every 5 years, and it's totally out of date, doesn't work, and so that negates that.
Yeah.
And so they get and it gives you a full profile or advert. It specifies specifies the criteria that you need to go against. It then produces a number of things. It recommends the success profiles that you should interview for, and then why. It provides interview questions, so it gives you a whole stack of interview questions, again, golden thread all the way through, and you can build a secondary set of questions in as well. It provides you then with advertising, so it gives you the advert to place on LinkedIn if you wish, onto X or wherever you want to post it, and it produces all of this in one, effectively a Google Doc. You then come to the end of that, flip it into the Google Doc, and then you can use AI or yourself to change, amend, improve anything that's in this sort of effective, this PDF, and then you download it. And you've got everything in one PDF. They can cut and paste the advert. They can do whatever they want. They've got the interview questions, and it's proving very, very successful. We've got, and we'll talk about the other tool in a minute, but in total we've got way over 300 users in the business now using this tool as part of their recruitment. And quality, sort of anecdotally, the quality has been raised. They've had, in many cases, fewer candidates but better quality, which is great as far as we're concerned, because we get inundated. The time to hire is much quicker because they don't have to think about advertising. They don't have to think about the interview questions. They can literally do that. 3 minutes later, they've got their document, bang, off they go. They plug it into the recruitment platform to post their job, and then they're away. And just in terms of being current and being modern and having the reassurance that they are appealing to the right audience has made such a difference. So that's the feedback we're at. We're still working on the metrics of the feedback, but overall, that's what we're seeing so far, and it's so positive to see that.
I mean, my experience, if you give leaders and managers something that's going to make their life easier, they bite your hand off. Actually, adoption is relatively quick. Has that been your experience?
Most of them. We still have a
There's
few
always the
Luddites. We
one or
still
two,
have a few
isn't there?
Luddites. Yeah, most of them they do, and there are some that we've had to encourage to use it. But interestingly, it's a
Is that
little bit back
encouraged
to
in
the
inverted
days.
commas?
Yeah, and it's a little bit back to the days of LinkedIn. If you remember when LinkedIn first arrived in, early 2005 onwards, and you were doing sourcing with a hiring manager, and you'd go and you'd sit in front of a hiring manager and go, "What are you looking for?" And you put the job title in, and all these search results come in, and then
Yeah.
you work through, and they go, "Oh my God, I didn't know that you could do that." And what we're finding with AI, it's opening the eyes to people. Some of the younger ones and some of the more forward thinking are all over it. But once people have used it, and again, I mentioned to you earlier before we came on the video, unintended consequences. The one we found out from doing this, that a lot of them, the biggest issue they had, just interview questions. They didn't know what to ask, especially with the
Oh,
different changing jobs and job titles and the way the market's moving.
yeah.
And some of them just use it for the interview questions. Some of them use it for all of it. So again, you take a tool and they're using it for the way that they want to use it, but that's fine. That saves them time.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned a second tool that you've been working on. Which pain point was that trying to tackle?
Insights around where to hire, what to hire for. So it was all about talent insights. So from my perspective, I own recruitment in HMRC, and we've got 20 plus locations. And if one of the customer groups are looking for to hire certain skill sets, we want to hire them in the right place across the UK, where those skills are, or where they're going to be prevalent from a university, for example, in a few years'
Right.
time. And what I wanted was a tool that allowed me to know everything of an hour's circumference travel-wise from each of our locations. So I knew my talent location, everything from school leavers right through to university, so we can get in there and do outreach, through to current employment situation, so if people are making people redundant, or who's hiring, who's firing, and then all the skill insights that we built into the large language model that tells us that everything's going on, who's hiring, what skills are there, what the salaries are, what the feeling is in that particular part. And so that's what we built, and we've got this tool. And again, very, very effective. All you have to do, you put a location in, it will give you an up-to-date snapshot, what's going on in that town or that city at that moment in time, again, in a PDF. And the same way you would with ChatGPT, and allow you to question it and engage with it and talk to it, then you can talk to this tool about that location. What's the social mobility? What's the D&I? What are the skills that are being hired? Who's hiring? Who's firing? What's the salaries? And so it's an instant tool for people to use. And a very quick example of how much time we recently had a commission in post change of government. We are providing them with lots of information, as you might imagine, or lots of requests. And we had one to talk about different insights of the talent in all our locations, with different questions and various things. Now, before, it would have taken us weeks. We would have had to go out and go to each location. And Siobhan literally just had to, put the prompt in, look at the locations, put the locations in. Within 10, 15 minutes, we had the table there with all the information on there for all 20 plus locations, and we're able to then share that on. And that's a very, very simple, and we can go a lot more complex, but that's a very simple example of the significant time saving and the ability to provide accurate data to make the right decisions of where to go is a really brilliant tool.
I want to have a chat now about introducing AI, new ways of doing things, forward-thinking, progressive technology in a context sector, in your case, the public sector, which is not, I'm going to be as diplomatic as I can, it's not known for its speed of adoption, its risk taking when it comes to, and quite rightly so. I mean, HMRC is dealing with highly sensitive personal information, etc. What's it like trying to encourage perhaps a degree more curiosity, openness, speed of adoption in a sector like that? And what works for you in terms of getting people comfortable rather than multiple approval levels where you lose the will to live?
Well, first of all, I've been very lucky. So in my role there, in the time I've been at HMRC, I've had, I came in, Esther Wallington was a brilliant CPO from my perspective. She empowered me fully. She was very forward thinking and looking to the future, and AI came along, and it was like, we talked about what we wanted to do, and so I got the space first of all. So I got the space and the top cover to, and with Hannah below her as well, to go and explore and see what we can do. So the first thing is I had that space. Other departments sadly don't have that, and they are regimented. The first thing is we deliberately picked tools to build that were based on public data. So the private data, and people don't have to worry about their tax data, we're not going anywhere near that.
Yeah.
And so the combination of those two things, the license to the freedom to go and explore, and then secondly, the fact that it was public data, really important. And we used those. And what we did really early on, I was doing workshops, and how we got people interested across the HR team and wider was to just talk about AI, talk about what it was about, how it was evolving, how quickly, and how many presentations I rewrote that year as it changed, I do not know. And we were just doing just gentle workshops with people and getting them to see what it could do, have a bit of fun, but also explain what a prompt was, explain how it would work, explain how it would work in HR. And then we did that across HR, and then other customer groups and business units said, oh, can we have that as well? And then they'd go off and play. And then we had wider area across the civil service, had heard about it, and so can you come and do it over here, and can you come and do it here? And so I ended up going to do these. So we were basically starting to get people, stage one, get the interest, get them playing with it. We were lucky in HMRC. We've always had access on our system to all the tools like ChatGPT.
And of course, some organisations don't, do they? It's closed off to them.
But they do have a mobile phone, and all those are now, have been on the mobile phone, and they can go and do it on there. So we were always saying. So when I was with other departments that were maybe locked down, they were, and I was the answer was simple: go to your phone, just type in ChatGPT, log in with Google or whatever it was, and just play. Just ask it something. Just ask it about, HR policies, HR strategies, talent strategies, and start to see how it works and and that's what we did. And we just did that for the first year. And then we put in a bid. Civil Service Live is a global event across the UK for all the wider civil service. And myself and a couple of colleagues, they led it, Mark and Siobhan, and we were invited to go and present to all these big hubs. And there were 5, 6, 7, many more thousands of people at each one from all the departments. And we did this for about 3 months, going around the country, literally from Edinburgh to Newport to London. And what was interesting was, across all the talks that were done, and there were hundreds of them, we came second in terms of the most interesting talk for people that they wanted to explore. And so this is just everybody in the civil service. And we talked about curiosity. We talked about what AI is for you as a person, not necessarily in a workspace, and what it means to you and how you could engage and how you should think about doing it. So it was a very gentle, and curiosity was the one word that we really focused on. Be curious, go and explore. Don't be afraid. You can't make a mistake with this. You can't, as long as you don't upload personal data and don't upload company data, and you just keep that in mind. And the thing that we said from the start, and I think it still applies, many organizations have got a social media policy. And if we think about it, this is very similar to a social media policy. Yeah. Don't be silly. Don't put data in there. Don't put company data in there. And if you think of, and that's the guidance we gave in the early stages, to say, adopt that mindset and you won't go far wrong. Yeah.
What do you think are the common misconceptions about AI that you come across? I'll give you an example. So when I first started using ChatGPT, I used it like Google. I used it as a source of information, as opposed to something that can help me create things. And that was a kind of revelation to me. Is that a typical misconception that people have? Are there others that perhaps frighten them about using it?
We haven't touched on ethics and bias, and that's going to be the two things that people always go on about bias. The first thing they will say is biased. It's always because they read it in the Daily Mail and everything else that Daily Mail, but that's true. It talks about bias and other things. So bias, unfair, I think are the two, and the ethics of should we be using AI. So we're in the HR space. We ultimately are going to own ethics, really. I think people ethics and how it's used. That's to be explored, I guess. But it's a good question because everyone's different, and I had some fun. If people want to look at this, it's in my LinkedIn profile. Right, scroll down. I had some
We'll
fun
put your
with this.
LinkedIn profile link in the show notes.
So how I did this I did this example to show people how to do it differently in presentations. So what I did was what's brilliant about things like this, and you can create your own virtual teams and world and whatever. So I set up a group of people. So I asked ChatGPT to have, so we'll have a chairperson of a panel. And in that panel, I want this person, this person, this person, this person, gave a small persona of each of those people in the panel. So I picked a random subject. So just to prove a point, should you put cream on a scone first? Or should you put jam on a scone first? So as part of my panel...
Everyone knows it's jam first.
Yeah, well, you not in Devon. So basically I created this and then asked ChatGPT to explore this, debate it, and then provide the output, and which it did. And it copped out and said you can have either. But it showed and how it works. And a simple analogy to something that's not related to work. And people, oh, that's clever. That's really clever. Oh, I can use it for this then. I could set up a little marketing panel to test our marketing strategy. And those personas could be the ones that... I think
you're absolutely right. I think too often what we hear about AI is big stuff. It's going to take away this many jobs, or it's going to impact this many industries, or we see fake photographs and videos and the scary stuff. But actually, just on a very small and personal and human level, what could you do with it that's fun, that's interesting, that you can help your kids? I think so, to reduce it down a little bit away from big AI into actually something that is for everyone. And the more we can do that, I think that's useful. I'm just going to finish off with a couple of questions. One which is around, you raised it earlier about inclusivity, bias, and what's your response to people who have anxieties about inherent or unconscious bias being hardwired, forgive the language, hardwired, but you know what I mean, into AI? What's your response to that? What are the solutions to that?
I think, first of all, the main three providers behind Perplexity, Claude, and OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, are working very hard to eradicate that. So that's, if we think back 2 years ago, it's a lot better than it was then. So in the big scheme of things, but when we're building your own within an organization and you're building your own large language model, you're in control of that data. Now, what we found that's been interesting, so just straight as an example answer to that, we are looking at building a tool to help. So the biggest challenge, the number one challenge we're trying to solve is how do we help hiring managers or the business go through the large numbers of applications that come in and reduce that to a manageable number. We're talking tens of thousands we get. So we have to, and we usually do that manually. So you can imagine the time saving. So we've done some simple testing with completely anonymized data on at the moment, and we found that you can build a prompt. Obviously it's a complex prompt, and you can build a prompt in a certain way and construct it, and you can challenge it, get it to challenge itself around bias, around fairness and around inclusivity. And for example, we put reasonable adjustments, which is something in the civil service that allows people to be able to go to interviews and have conversations. And so we built all this into the prompt and then ran, a whole load of, CVs through it, again, completely anonymized, so there's no data there. And what we found was, because we had the data from those original interviews, so we know the outputs, what that happened in real life with non-AI, we found out that this is not going to surprise anybody, but humans were more biased than the AI it was, because we'd built this tool and it questions itself and looks at the different words that are used. And so you can build it to be as unbiased. But the bottom line is, we live in a biased world, and every single one of us have unconscious bias in us. We try and eradicate it at interview, don't we? But everybody's got some. And I think that we found, when doing this last exercise, it's consistent. So the thing about AI is it looks at it independently. It looks at the data. It doesn't look at anything else. And so it's examining the data against another set of data, but it's doing the same thing every time consistently. And it doesn't, so whatever, if there is a lower level of bias in there somewhere, which is inherent, it's very low level, but it looks at every single person or every single bit of data the same way every single time, whether it's 50 ways or 1,000 ways. And so when we've shown people this and people see this, and we've examined it afterwards and compared data sets, we can prove that it's better. But it's always going to be there. People think, again, people hear the word bias because it's the favourite word of the press. That's really
interesting. And as you say, you've got two things in its favour. One, it's, you can challenge it over and over and over again to remove the biases that are within there. But once you've got it as good as you probably think you can get it, it will behave like that consistently, unlike a human being. Final question for me then, Andy, what's next for you? What's your next area to explore?
Well, what I'm referring to at the moment, which is that we're trying to get the magic around sifting and selection and assessment.
So that's
and we're working on
the next. That's
product. The big one for us, because it's such a time saver, and it would make such a difference to the organisation and the wider organisation. We're currently going through all the governance boards, the ethics boards, the data boards. So that's our current process, because there is people data involved. But just to be clear for anyone listening, we are not looking for AI to make decisions. What we want to do is, when we get a substantial amount of applications, a large proportion of those are unsuitable. And what, you touched on AI earlier, can use for so many different ways. It can very quickly look at things and go, no, it's not suitable because it doesn't meet the specification. And then obviously we use AI to manage that. So we're looking to do it in the right ethical, transparent way, and we're just going through all that process at the moment. So you mentioned governance earlier. We have some governance now we're working through, which is what we do.
I'm
so
sure
hopefully
you do.
The new year we'll see that. We'll see the next iteration.
Andy, thank you so much for joining me today on HR Disrupted. As I say, we'll put the link to your LinkedIn profile in the notes on the show so people can connect with you if they want to find out more. But for now, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucy. Pleasure.